Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Robert from Islam for Europeans. Please like and subscribe to the channel. So, last night there was in response to a NATO summit in Montreal, a corresponding protest. This was a combined, I guess, pro-Palestinian and anti-NATO protest. Unfortunately, the protests turned violent. Apparently, there's film footage of windows being broken. There's film footage of Netanyahu's effigy being burned. There was footage of um, businesses being vandalized, fireworks going off, and this, I believe, resulted in about 4 arrests and a couple of injuries. Thankfully, no deaths. Um, the response on social media, obviously, the other side is going to use this event to galvanize support, against the cause, but also to try to drum up support for the next election with the conservatives. Now that they're in a clear landslide. At the same time, Trudeau was spotted at a Taylor Swift concert. Right, so I'm going to talk about what this means for the Muslim community in general in Canada, but also how this, what this means for us converts. Um, Now, I always like to start off by saying, this is just my sincere nasiha. I'm not saying this to be insensitive to people. I know that, there are many people who've lost several family members because of this, horrible genocide that's been going on for 13 and a half months now. You know, but the way I see it is, it's, in Canada and more, generally in the West, you have basically 4 different categories of white Westerners, or just Westerners in general. This goes for Canada, Germany, the UK. So, category one would be like, um, somebody who's pro-Palestinian, but they're on the political left, right? So, this would be like your, I'm just trying to think of some examples. Your Michael Moores, for example, Kyle Kalinske, um, and they kind of take this not just kind of like pro-Palestinian approach, but they frame it in the greater context of this because of Western powers, like or basically the West, which is meting this out, and Israel is just basically an extension of the West, right? And it's not just this that we have to oppose, but just um, anything Western in general. And I know that these people are sincere. I know that like they generally care about what's going on. Um, the more extreme voices on this side, they frame things in a way that tend to be very, I guess, sort of blaming everyone in the West, for what is going on, which can be counterproductive. In any case, that's group number one. Then you have group number two, and those are, people who are against the genocide, who are on the political right. That may range anywhere from libertarians, to, for like Andrew Napolitano, for example. And then you have people on the extreme, dissident right. I don't need to name names, but they are generally not seen in like the public eye. They're not seen on social media except in like dark corners. Mainstream legacy media is never going to report their talking points. They don't go to protests normally, and if they do, they're not going to be given a platform, right? So that's another group. Then there's a third group who are basically the other side. They support what Israel's been doing for the last 13 and a half months. And they frame this in the greater context of, we're both fighting, the Muslim slash Arab slash Eastern slash communist enemy. Many of these are significant people are significantly older, your boomer types, and they, in general, their support is fading. You know, they're getting older. It's getting harder and harder for them to um, morally justify, uh, you know, what these Western elite governments are doing. Um, and they really see the world in black and white, and they just basically parrot whatever legacy media says, right? So that's your third group, and then you have a fourth group, of white Westerners, which are basically the largest group, but at the same time not really seen in any capacity. And this is basically the undecided or the uninformed. There's many Westerners out there, white Westerners who, they're living their lives. They have full-time jobs. Um, they just watch hockey, like or football. They have other things to worry about. They're worried about the housing crisis. Um, and they don't really look into these matters all that much. These people who don't really watch legacy media, nor do they have like a social media account. And many of them don't want to make a decision, yay or nay, because they're uninformed and they don't want to say something that is incorrect. So they generally just they may have a vague sense of being on team X or Y, um, but for the most part, they don't really look into these matters. And I'm saying this because the other side, even though it's getting more and more difficult for them to morally justify what is happening. There's even with all that, they're still better at appealing to your average Westerner. Your average Westerner, they're not bad people. They're not evil people. They're not morally repugnant, right? But when you show them what legacy media is showing them, when you hear some people on the left say statements such as, you know, I don't want to say it on the air, but D to Canada, D 5-letter word to Canada, D 5-letter word to the United States. That's just going to galvanize them, and they might go from neutral, not having an opinion, to where do I sign up for the next PPC or conservative rally? How do I donate to Rebel Media? Um, I'm going to join the cause because these people are so incredibly insulting. They must not be on my side. And like it's harder and harder for the group number two, the pro-Palestinian right, to justify, because they support the cause. They don't, it's getting hard. It's harder for them to justify when you have people spouting such talking points. So it's a general sense that whatever we say, whatever we do, um, to try to appeal to your average Westerner. Um, I think Muslims, I guess born Muslim leadership, um, they have a tendency to only engage with, or forced to be only engaged with, the people on the far anti-Islam faction of the right. And these people are so incredibly um, pig-headed and unable to change that it almost becomes futile to try to change people's opinion. It just as like a general sense that it's pointless to try to appeal to your average Westerner. And on top of that, it's the governments at the end of the day who are doing these things. It's the people in power. Your average Joe, the hoi polloi, even if they were to change their opinions on things, it's not going to factor in, change much really in their eyes, because at the end of the day, even if you have 80% of the people who are on our side, they're going to end up voting for a right-wing party at the end of the day, thinking that it's going to change things. And whichever political party you vote for, it's going to end up with the same problems. So I think that's those two factors combined sort of make it appear as though trying to appeal to your average Westerner is futile. And then you have to keep in mind, like I said, been saying on this channel very much, many born Muslims, not all, but many of them, They have no non-Muslim family members. They don't really interact with, the greater society. They kind of tend to live in their own enclaves. So it becomes harder and harder for them to believe that, there's a wide range of opinions on this subject, right? So, um, and I'm not putting the blame on any one particular person. I think that, you know, it's um, it's a very complicated issue. Um, so and on top of that, people like myself, they don't want to say anything because, they're, to the protesters or, the people who are organizing the protest because they generally don't want to listen to us. So getting bogged down in this, it can really wear you out mentally, emotionally, physically. It's been a very long year. We've cried a lot of tears. There's been a lot of anger, and you can't let it affect your iman. You can't let it affect your iman because then it affects your whole life. You can't work properly, you can't dress properly, you can't, go to work properly, which, in the back of your head, you're thinking, wow, this is really, I don't deserve to be able to work properly and, get a job and everything. But you got to keep moving forward. You have to be a positive influence for yourself and for your life. Now, it does make things more difficult, events such as these, because many of us converts are our family members and our community members, they see this on the TV and, some of them think, my son or daughter who's converted or my brother or sister who's converted or my cousin, they've joined the enemy. And, an event like this might be the thing that, brings them over the edge and gets you kicked out of the house or written out of the will. Um, you know, and, that's not to say that, I don't care about, the real, issue at hand. Um, it's not a zero sum game. I want to see a healthy um, sub community of converts, just like everybody else, because that'll improve the image of Islam in the West. Um, but like it's just something that we have to deal with. And you're going to hear incendiary statements from some Muslims or some people who are protesting, and that's going to enrage people to join people on the right or get you know make it more unlivable of a situation for us converts. Um, but that's just going to come with the territory, basically. I mean, it's always going to be like this, and I don't see it getting any better for the near foreseeable for future. Unfortunately, I do see, because of the recent election in the States and also the upcoming election in Canada, a large clampdown on these types of protests. So, you're going to have to really prioritize, how you run your life, how, what you engage in. Um, and, like it'll give us, I guess, a silver lining. It's tough to find a silver lining in all this, but it'll at least give us time to re-review, what went wrong with, um, the the image, like changing the game in terms of public opinion, which has already shifted enormously. I think people don't realize that public opinion has shifted over to our side overall in every Western country, and I don't think like people who lead the side of the protest, the side for truth and justice. Um, they don't really quote these polls, and it's easy to think that the vast majority of Westerners hate us or are on the other side when that's simply not the case, especially for the youth. Um, so yeah, I mean those are my thoughts on the subject. Oh, the last thing I wanted to talk about is you know one thing that these protesters or like, and again I've been to a protest before, and I think one of the, and again this is apparently last night, there was a NATO summit. they never really mentioned Ukraine. And like it's a horrible situation, with what's going on with Ukraine, and it could end, God forbid, in nuclear war. And you really don't mention anything about it. It's almost like it's a war that it's a topic that's just simply not brought up in like left wing pro-Palestinian circles. Um, and it's a shame because war is horrible. I mean, like it's yes, the destruction, you could say the destruction in Gaza is far worse in terms of the devastation, in terms of the lives lost. Um, but Ukraine is just as bad. I mean, it's a terrible situation. I mean, I'm not taking one side one way or the other. But the NATO and Western government elites, they want to continue this thing. And I you do see people like Judge Andrew Napolitano and Douglas McGregor talk about Ukraine quite a bit in conjunction with the other conflict, but because I do think that they're related. Um, but like we should be against war in any case. There are Muslims in Ukraine as well, and Muslims in Russia. And I'm not taking a side either way. I don't think you know either leader of either group, of either of those countries is an angel by any means, stretch of the imagination. But I do think that it was kind of a lost opportunity because it's something that you can people can relate to, especially in the West. Like even the Westerners that I talk to who are against war in general, or maybe they're just against the Trudeau government. They're like the idea of funding Ukraine, is just going to weapons where they're just going to be lambs led to the slaughter. It's not that they don't. That's not they hate Ukrainians. It's just that why are we spending billions of dollars on supporting the a war effort in an Eastern European country when we have people homeless living on the streets? This is something that Muslims should oppose, you would think. And this a great opportunity to try to bridge that gap is to talk about this very important subject that could unfortunately lead us down into World War III. Um, I just don't understand why they never really thought of bringing up that subject. I guess because it's so tangentially related that it's tough to talk about anything else. But I guess that just comes with the territory, really. So, in conclusion, this is my message to my fellow, converts out there. You're going to have to deal with, your family members, and events like this. It's not going to make it any better. But you have to keep moving forward. You can't get discouraged. It's easy to get discouraged, but we have an important job to do, and it's a job that is not only going to benefit us, but I guess the ummah at large, and that is being the best Muslims that we can be. Um, standing up for truth and justice, changing our behavior, becoming upright human beings, and making dua to Allah, our Creator, that he improves our situation and the situation of our brothers and sisters all across the world. So that's my time for the day. I'm Robert, Islam for Europeans. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And I wish you all the very best. And may Allah keep our brothers and sisters safe across the world. And may Allah accept our humble deeds and forgive us of our shortcomings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.